Going on here. We've tossed a coin and I'm up first, but I have promised Luke that I'm not going to eat into his time by talking now. So my name is Charlie Danger. I'm an occupational therapist by background. I work at CENMAC and also a centre and a few other places where we've been developing and switch development and stuff. Luke, you're going to introduce yourself later or now?
I can do it later.
Later? He's opted for later. Okay, hold on.
This is your timer.
I do have some slides.
And the clock's done.
Clock
That's
has begun.
3 minutes down.
Okay, right, here we go. So, I presented this last at Communication Works in the North. It was a 30-minute, and I'm now down to 10. So, here we go. Functional switching, that's what it's called. Collaboration between CENMAC and a centre. The website is functionalswitching.com. I don't think it's been made live yet, but you can find it by going to the CENMAC website and searching for that. So the first quick question is why do we use switches? Just put your hands up if you know about switches.
Yeah.
Oh, a few. Put your hands up if you know about scanning.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot of people. I think that's pretty much everyone. If you don't know about scanning, ask the person next to you. Save me 30 seconds. So basically, you use switches for playing, you use switches for controlling the environment, you use switches for mobility, communication, learning and education. The reason why you need scanning is because often there's going to be a lot more options than you have switches, right? So if you want to use the alphabet, that's at least 26 options, but you've only got 1 or 2 switches. So you have to scan through all the options and press the switch when you get there. This, for some people, so I'll skip past that. This, for some people, is a bit of a challenge to scan, but what they can do is start by pressing the switch to make things happen, like pirate ships to go sailing by or something like that. Now, about a year ago, I suppose, we've got this switch development thing that's been going for a while, and about a year ago we decided to try using this gear format. The reason being is you have to use first gear to get started, but once you've got up to first gear, you can then change between the gears depending on the terrain that you're in, okay? We find that a lot of children and some adults get stuck in first gear, which most people call cause and effect, and never move on. So this is an idea to get people out of that and into moving through those other gears smoothly, okay? Behind all of this is an activity book, which is available on the CENMAC website, and all the activities are divided according to each gear. Okay, so if you're in first gear, you can do first gear activities, second gear activities, etc. We really promote the use of single message devices, or whatever we want to call these things, like Big Macs and Smooth Talkers, because they allow the activities to be, stories within the classroom, or activities that involve peers, or activities that involve the family. And you don't need to worry about having a computer and software and an internet connection. All you need is one of these talking switches, which includes in some cases the ones that you can get for doggies, which they're beginning to use in schools, which I think you get like 6 for £15, so they're actually pretty good. I was a bit hesitant at first, but they're pretty good.
What's those that I haven't?
Hello?
What are those? I haven't come across those.
There's like a social media thing of dogs pressing switches, which I think in American episode, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can buy it in supermarkets. You can buy it in supermarkets.
Oh.
That's 3 seconds off your time.
Are they actually designed for dogs?
Yeah, they're designed for dogs.
That's a bit. I find that a little bit of a worry. A bit of a conceptual issue.
That's what I was concerned about too. Like, do we give switches designed to dogs for children? Is that a nice thing? But they are like 100 for the price, and they work really well.
Okay.
And you just don't tell the child, "Hey, this was designed for a dog." I guess they love dogs.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You've got to get over it.
All right. So here are the gears. So first gear is discovery, which is like cause and effect. And in first gear, what we do is we put switches somewhere where the young person or adult is going to hit it accidentally. They're going to discover it by accident. Normally, I like to put switches near the head because they'll be moving their head around quite a bit. But you might want to put it where arms are moving or legs are moving. It doesn't matter because we're going to find a more permanent place for the switch later on. So we call that discovery. Now, in our book, AI was involved in here, obviously. In our book, we have a range of different activities, and so some of them are things like turning on a fan, doing a xylophone, being tickled, whatever. In the longer presentation, we might look into that a bit more, but what I'll do is I'll just show you a video of somebody having this process. So he's pressing the switch, in an accidental existing movement, not a new movement, and it's playing All the Single Ladies, which is a popular song by Beyonce plays that song. Yeah, so there we go, so he's enjoying that. That's first gear. Second gear, here we go. We're moving quite fast now, we're up to about 20 miles an hour. Is that how fast cars go? Yeah, good. So this is new moves, okay? So in second gear we're in new moves, and this is where we're going to put the switch places for people to reach and press, basically. And we may have several places around the body, because relying on one place has some disadvantages. And here you can play some quite exciting games. So you can play all the existing games, but you just move the switch to different locations, or you can play new games. So here we've got a character who's got like 4 switches, and we will randomly enable the switches to be able to blow this pirate ship, which is being blown by a fan in a little bit of water or something. And there's a little tool down there called a Belkin audio hydro adapter, and it lets you plug lots of switches into one port. So you can have lots of switches that you can use around your body to be able to activate it. And they basically have to find the right switch. Another little activity is this vomiting, what are these things, puppet thing, and basically it eats up switches, or pretends to, and then it vomits, also pretending, the switch back up in a different position, and the young person has to find where the switch has been vomited. And then there's another one where they press a spinner, and the spin spins round, and then it points to a different body part, and then the young person has to move that body part to find the switch. These appear in the book as well, and here's a little video of the second one. So she's got a switch. So Keziah works for the A Centre.
This hand.
She's my colleague in this project.
Well done. This hand again. Oh, and this hand again. Well done. Well, now let's look. Oh, your head.
That AbleNet spinner is something you can buy off the shelf. I've also seen people make their own.
And this hand.
Okay, because of limited time, we'll move on. So now we're into third gear, which is where we introduce 2 switches. There's a whole load of reasons why 2 switches is better than 1 if you can do it. We're assuming in this model that you can do it. And it's certainly something you should persevere. With 2 switches, there's a lot of activities like applause and boo is nice. So you get up, you give it your best shot, you give a performance, and then the young person you're with presses the switch to say boo, rubbish, get off. And then Teresa gets up. Teresa does a sort of an adequate performance, and they press the switch like, yeah, Teresa, you're great. And you're like, that's a bit of favoritism, isn't it? But you've got applause, boo, and then there's like pig dog derby where you can have 2 animals racing each other, which can be quite fun. Here's an example where somebody's been asked about their parents. It's quite a long video, so I'm only going to let it play for a minute or so.
Who is most likely to fall asleep on the couch?
Dad.
Okay, let's think of another question. Can you think of any? Or Mum and Dad, can you think of any? Or Dylan, can you think of any? Any questions? Who's most likely to?
Dad.
Who's most likely to make Callie laugh? Dad makes you laugh.
Mum does come up a bit later, but it's not a long video, but yeah, okay. So 1, 2, 3, now we're in 4th gear, so we're going pretty quick, everything. So at this point, there's nothing wrong with us going down to 2nd gear, and you could also skip gears. You know, we do that when we drive, right? We go 2nd, and then we're like, I might go up to 4th now, or 5th, you know, if you're going downhill. So you can skip between the gears. You don't have to have this rigmarole where you have to be like, oh, we've done all that, let's move on to the next stage. We're trying to like loosen it up a little bit. So at this stage we are exploring building and scanning. So really, you could call it error-free or failure-free, but this is where people are learning to build and learning to scan, but there's no intent. You know, you're not giving somebody a communication aid where they haven't learned to scan and then they're going to be saying things that are not intentional, if all that makes sense. This is actually my very favourite part of the job really, because here you can have a group of people and you can do next, so Charlie, no, Teresa, no, Luke, yep, and then they press go, and then Luke has to do his special talent, dancing, singing, or talking about his switch development, 7 stages switch development, which is coming up next. So it's going to be really exciting. We're all looking forward to that. That's in just a minute's time, 30 seconds time. So dance selecting is quite good, but you can do anything. And you could also just have one person, and then just loads of different funny fancy dress things, and they scan through the funny fancy dress things, and you're like, oh, I've got to wear this, or I've got to put these on, or I've got to put on the clown boots, and it's quite fun. I mean, it's kind of the best part of the job. And again, these are in the book. Here is a
Steady.
video.
Your turn.
So she's using that wobble switch to build.
More. One more.
Okay, if you want to see the end of that, you'll have to come back to more training another time. And this is a example with scanning. So building and scanning are quite similar. Here's an example with scanning. So they've got a trifold board with a different symbol on each side, and they spin the symbol around to scan, and then she chooses the one she wants, and then they all... See, there they are scanning. So she's pressing the next button, and then she's pressing the do it button. I couldn't hear what the audio is, but it's something like next, 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 go, something like that. 5th gear. Ooh. Okay, so 5th gear is where we stop measuring success with the switches, and we start measuring success with the communication aid or the access to education or whatever other standard measurements. And you'll be pleased to know this is the last little video. This is somebody scanning with intent in 5th gear with her communication aid. Oh, here we go. She's done all of the practice with playing around with scanning. She's tried other things, and now she is scanning with this communication aid. Super cool. That looks good. Okay, she likes it. Good, thanks. She was talking about functional switching. She said she likes it, just FYI. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
So training on switch skill development and e-learning modules. So what I don't get through today, you can go on my website, and there's a free e-learning module. And I'm doing innovation, so I'm starting an Innovate UK grant in June, developing some AI-related AT stuff. So it's kind of cool. The name of my company is named after a little girl called Zhao. She's censored because this is a public thing. But my wife Cherry and my daughter Talia, we've been trying to adopt Zhao for several years. She's the motivator behind why I work in this field and why switches, I'm passionate about switches because they can enrich her life and many other kids around the world's life. So how was the 7 stages developed? So we used, and this is just real quick, we used active user research when I developed it. I had a little bit of funding from Speech and Language UK that enabled me to then do a bit of research. So I looked at the existing models that were out there. I contacted users and parents and therapists to say, what do you think of this idea? And then make the adjustments. So that's how we developed. Oh, hello. I've been censored. Is that you? He drained all the energy from the microphone. So then we came up with the 7 stages of switch development, and it's based on targeting information to the user initially, and then to the parents, and then resourcing those around them. So the 7 stages has 7 characters for each stage. So we have Exploring Egbert and Journeying Zhao. That's the cause and effect stage. We then have Growing Gareth and Budding Brayton, which is the playing with and using 2 switches. Then we have Flourishing Fatima and Succeeding Safi, which is where we start playing with switch scanning and then using switch scanning. And then the 7th stage, which is Celebrating Saeed, is using switches across your day. So instead of just for one activity, you'll use it for communications, for controlling your environment, for moving your power wheelchair. So it's for multiple things. So really quickly, I don't know how long have I got. I'll fly through. I've got 5 minutes. I've got 8 minutes. I've got loads of time. relax a little bit. So the first stage, explore and but like Charlie's stage, like all the switch models are out there, we start with cause and effects. So we're exploring, this is incidental activating of a switch to activate a sensory cause and effect activity. So don't start with a switch toy that's over in the distance that moves and maybe does lights. We're really thinking dark room, lights come on and it's really obvious when I press it, or vibration, or sound that's an immediate response. So we want them to have an aha moment, and when they do that, they've really started their journey. So they're exploring, now they're starting their switch journey, so they have this realization that when they press the switch, something happens. So they're intentionally pressing the switch to make something happen. And in this stage, is kind of two. We start with a cognitive stage, and then we move to the physical. So when it comes to technology, we often forget about the child as a human being and a brain, and we're focused on, I'm going to get the right switch and I'm going to put it in the right place and get the right activities. Whereas if you think of what Charlie was saying about before, like moving the switch around, that really is working on them understanding that switches, when they impact it, it does something, no matter where it is. If they enact on it, then they can control something in their environment. And that's what you want to start with, not trying to find the right switch, trying to find the right position. And then you move on, once they've started to establish and they've shown some understanding that they can move their body and do it, then you want to start that motor pathway and get I'd say primary, secondary and dynamic switch site. So you get that primary one because every teacher and every TA and family member wants to know, where should I put the switch? So you get that primary one, but also say, there's a secondary one, use their head, but their hand, and then maybe dynamic and be a little bit crazy. Explore. And then once we've done that, we start to grow. So we stop journeying and we start to grow. And this is growing Gareth, and this is where we start to introduce two switches. So we've got two switches that do two very different things. So this will start to teach choice. So you press one, it does lights, another one it does vibration or sound, so they can differentiate between what's going on. And there's there's two things now that's going on with my switches. And then once we've done that, we start to use two switches for one activity. So that can be like build it up, knock it down. So they're just doing that one activity but using two switches for it. Then we start to play with switch scanning, and this is error-friendly learning. So this is when, again, Charlie's video, that was a great example of scanning. So you can do it in the room with that little, what was it, a little triangular block that they were turning around. Or you can get a hoop and you can scan around the room if you want. And again, this can grade, so you can scan two options and start increasing the options. So that's scanning and error-friendly learning. They don't have to find the right answer, they can just play. Then when we move to the next stage, it's using switch scanning. So you're kind of challenging them to find the right option. They need to, for example, you go, what colour is a banana? And they go scan through and find yellow. So they can make a mistake in that. And then you can see whether they understand or can control that switch to achieve. And that's helpful for communication as well. And then we get to independent, the seventh stage, independent in functional use. So this is where you're using switches for communication. You're then going out of your communication device and your software and going to play games, or you're controlling your lights in your environment. To support the 7 stage switch development, I've created 7 social stories. So then this teaches the child, the user, about switch skill developments. It also has a byproduct. Oh, thank you, Charlie. Here. I have a stand outside if you want to have a look. So that will teach them about switch skill development, which is really important because, again, you introduce switches, it's really overwhelming when you start switches with children. They're like, what's going on? This is stressful. I also have, it's jumping on. I also have some other resources on my website which are free and downloadable. So it's www.jiao.life. And there's posters that you can have. There's a information sheet that you can download. It's also in the book. There's a switch profile. I've just released a switch goal template. So there's lots of resources that I've put out and that are freely available. The only thing is the books, they cost money to produce, so you can pay for them. You can buy them on Amazon. It's more expensive, but if you buy it from my website, you get a discount. And then there's an assessment tool. It's really good to keep track of a child's progression. I don't know if it's your experience, but often I find that children who have switch access, it's kind of dependent on which classroom or where they've gone, and there's no like history. So there's a switch profile that you can download and use that helps, and then there's an assessment tool which gives families a bit of a trajectory of where they're going. So that was my world. Did I do all right?
Great.
And then we've got question and answers.
You got a minute.
We've got question and answers now from me and Charlie. So. Over to everyone. Do you have any questions? Charlie's happy to answer any tricky ones, and I'm happy to answer any simple ones.
I'll keep it simple. I guess in terms of the stage you're at here, like we know what switch we're using, so is there a stage even before this, or are we still tweaking what type of switch should that person be using?
So a question about what type of switch they're using, and so I find often when it comes to the children I work with, the type of switch can change even during the day. So they might. So we on one of the videos you saw a proximity switch, which often is used with children that can't really put force onto the switch to activate or target with their upper limbs. So often we'll be exploring. That's kind of my job, Charlie's job. We kind of go out. We look at what type of mounting system would work, what type of switch would work, and we support you in it. When you start, there's nothing wrong with just using a simple push button switch. I don't get panicked on the type of switch. Sometimes it's just problem solving and go, oh, this switch might actually help later on, and their needs do change throughout the years. Do you want to?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is that one of the reasons why people get stuck without using switches is because people are waiting for an occupational therapist, or they're waiting for the perfect switch, or they spend 3 or 4 years trying to find all these different switch positions. But we want to produce really easy resources so that parents and TAs and other people are just confident enough to put a switch in front of somebody and get them using it, because what's the worst that can happen in that situation? So we're trying to kind of almost ignore that part, but then there are professionals around who can help if it's tricky, basically, I think. Does that answer your question?
Thanks, sir.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So I've gotten mixed feedback from just different people about consistency of type of switch being used. Just for the child to learn, for example, the red switch will always be scanning and the yellow switch is always selecting. Did you find in your experience that that's really relevant, that it's really good to always keep it the same, or switching it up quite independent?
So the question is about consistency in using, like, you're talking about position as well as colour?
Or even type of switch.
Type of switch, keeping consistency to help in their learning. Yeah.
It's a complicated balance, because for some people they're just using movements. So I'm a particular fan of using the head for switch access, because it frees up the space in front of you for eating and having a communication board and everything like that. And so in that case, you do want, if you're doing scanning, to consistently have progress, for example, on the left and select on the right, and it's really confusing when you go to schools and they just randomly plug it in one way or the other. So yes, there is a need for consistency. I think we also promote having switches in different places and to different body parts for different things. So if you've got switches that are out and about, it's a good idea to put symbols on them so that they can look at the symbol and know what the switch does, even maybe more than the colour, depending on the person. So yeah, I think that's kind of it. It is a balance, and classic statement. It depends on the individual.
Yeah, I agree. It's all person-centered. Don't just apply a law that every switch has to be applied, like the red has to be left and yellow has to be right, and it has to be consistent, because sometimes it's completely pointless. They might not see the colours and it's irrelevant to them. And it's also very hard, like Charlie's example of moving the switch is a good thing to do, and if you apply that has to be in the same place, then you won't ever explore that. And what we've found is that there's children who grow up who only have like a limited, maybe one way of accessing the switch, and then they lose that function and then they can't carry on communicating or using the stuff. So it's good to explore, but there is a logic behind for motor patterns developing those if there is a consistent place. But so my stage, this journey in JAL, the second part, when we started we've got a primary and secondary switch site, but then we continue to explore other ones. So again, it's getting that balance. It's not I don't think it's a law. Oh, one more minute. Should we go?
Well, I'm just going to add that we put tactile identifiers on ours as well.
Yeah, so you can change the surface of the switch, put tactile identifiers on, so particularly for children with visual impairments and they might be feeling it and they can identify a different switch. Yeah.
That was going to be my question, was about how do you support switch development for students with visual impairment?
Yeah.
We actually were very fortunate to have a big meeting with the Havering QTVIs a couple of weeks ago. So the first thing I would say is to work closely with QTVIs and families that know the young person and know what vision they have and know what areas they can see in and what colours they can see. And then we use things like these trifolds and bigger ones and Maxis trays to highlight the colour of the switch. And you might bring it into somebody's visual field and then follow it down onto the tray so that they can find it physically. We try to focus on, so you can get switches that light up as well, to help people, but we try and take away the focus from the switch. The switch should just be a movement that happens to press something, which creates access to the world. If we make the switch too exciting, then people will just focus on the switch, which is not kind of what we want. But sometimes we need to do that in order to prime the pump. Thank you, Luke, for this phrase. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's good. Prime the pump. That's our time. Thanks for coming to our talk.